Let's turn to Chris Hayes, the Washington editor of The Nation magazine, to look at what the political impact is going to be. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
All right, so Michael Steele had just copped to this Southern strategy, the new Republican Southern strategy. Are we seeing now a Southwestern strategy on that party's part?
Well, if it's a Southwestern strategy, I think it's idiotic. I mean, they reaped a lot of gains from the Southern strategy back in the 60s and the 70s, and the problem is they can win regionally in short-term ways in a state like Arizona. They can make some sort of political hay out of this. In the long term, it's suicide. It's political suicide because of the demographic trends of the country. Every smart Republican, from a strategic perspective, understands that. And yet, I think that they're so sort of captured by the angriest part of the base that this is the sort of thing you see.
But as you suggest, could this wind up being the best thing to ever happen to opponents of bills like this?
I do think it has a potential for two reasons. One is I think it could be a real Terry Schiavo moment. I mean, we've been seeing the snake flag with "Don't tread on me," right? This is, we are sure as hell going to tread on you. We're going to tread all over you. This is an unbelievable ratcheting up of state power. In fact, it's almost certainly unconstitutional. That'll be resolved by the courts. And second of all, back in 2006, the largest mass mobilization in this country that had happened since the Iraq War were the rallies in support of immigration reform. And what triggered those was a bill in the House sponsored by Sensenbrenner that basically would have made it a crime to be illegal or to be out of status. And that really galvanized the movement that sort of coalesced then. And I think this may be a similar triggering point.
Yeah, when you get to the point, and Congresswoman Sanchez, who was just here, or anybody, partially somewhat tanned person of Caucasian origin who's not from Arizona needs to have their passport with them in another state of this country. It is mind-boggling.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, it's just so beyond the pale. I think and people have to understand, the other thing that has to happen is it has to be made into a national issue. I mean, every single Republican needs to be asked whether they support this bill. Every single one serving in Congress and the Senate. This has to be made into a national issue because it's an indefensible piece of legislation, and they have to be put on the defensive to either repudiate it or to just to endorse it.
I mean, think of John Boehner. I don't want to make too much light of this, but just for a second, think of John Boehner getting pulled over in Phoenix because he's orange. Congressman Grijalva was here to get back to the serious part of this. Tuesday night proposed with obvious regret and pain in his voice saying this about his home state, an economic boycott of Arizona, conventions. That would be the principal idea. But what about how quickly could something like that kick in business-wise? Because they're unawarded Super Bowls. Major League Baseball, the spring training in Arizona, the baseball spring training, the Cactus League is growing or had been. Manny Ramirez is going to go train in Glendale, Arizona when some cop might pull him over for driving while Hispanic. How fast could this all unravel economically?
I think it could. I mean, I think that's actually a real pressure point. We've actually been here before in 1990 when the citizens of Arizona refused to recognize Martin Luther King Day as a federal holiday. There was a national boycott effort. There was, of course, the great Public Enemy song, By the Time I Get to Arizona. And I think both the economic input, the pressure of the boycott, and just the kind of national moral opprobrium that was directed at the state had some influence. And I think that hopefully you're going to see a kind of movement like that now. And I think it will start to kind of recalculate the incentives for both the citizens of Arizona and the politicians there.
Yeah, watch the sports angle. I think there may be some baseball teams pressured by their own citizens and by their own ownership not to go to Arizona for 2011.
Yeah.
Chris Hayes of The Nation, great thanks. Have a great weekend.
You too, Keith.